I made a promise to the man in the village. You know, I had apologized to him that I didn't have any tools, and I didn't have my crew with me. It was just my interpreter, and all I had was my camera. And I said, but you know, I promise that I'll show you, that I will show this film to as many people as I can to share with them what you people have gone through in Banda Aceh. I was in Quebec at the time when the tsunami hit, and I'd seen it on TV, and I was very touched with what went there, and for some reason I had a strong impression to go there. So when I returned, several months went by, and one Sunday morning I felt this strong impression to go to Elmberg Church, a church that I go to once in a while but hadn't been there for about a year. A team had just gotten back from Banda Aceh. Elmberg had sent their medical team, and they had shared their experiences, and they had pictures of the destruction of the tsunami. And I was very touched by it. I was crying during that service, and I knew that I was supposed to go there. So a month later, I took a one-day class, a cultural orientation class that I attended for about 8 hours. And as it was, I was able to sit next to a doctor who turned out to be the team leader for that outreach. And he got to know me, and he got to know my desire and my heart for these types of outreaches. And I also shared with him that I was getting very much interested in videography and had a real desire to get into documentary filmmaking. And so at the end of that 8 hours, he approached me and asked me if I would join the team. And I said yes, I would be delighted to join the team, and that was my open door to going there. Well, it was an interesting team. It was a medical team, and it was the second team, I believe, that had gone there. The first team had left just a month after the tsunami. We were the second team, and it was a medical team. We had 3 doctors, 3 nurses, and 3 non-medical people.
Each bag was already weighed and inventoried. Fortunately, we had a scale next in the next room so we could make sure it was less than 50 pounds. Perfect. Yesterday, Greg and I had some of these big bags that were 70 pounds, 64. This box is the one non-luggage piece we've got. We've got that a nice microscope in there, and then packed some other soft things around it for cushion. For this trip, I was approached by the Greg Ekbom, a surgeon, a team leader, with whom I'd gone to Ghana, and he said, "Tom, you know, we're going to have children that we're going to want to see. I know you can handle the pediatrics part, but I know you've got some experience. You know, logistics just seemed to come naturally to me."
Every Sunday night we would meet at Dr. Greg Ekbom's house, and we would talk about our trip, and we work out all the details, and we pray and get ourselves mentally prepared, emotionally prepared for this trip.
Benevolent supplies that have been given to us, and hearts that have been touched, and desiring to do that. We pray for your blessing on those people.
May I have your attention, the terminal, please? Singapore Airlines is staging for Rosamond Fokker.
The hardest part of planning the medical part of it was an uncertainty as to what the conditions would be once we got to Banda Aceh. We knew that a lot of the infrastructure had been destroyed in the tsunami, and weren't quite sure what was going to be available as far as buildings, equipment, furniture, tables, chairs.
For me, I knew it was going to be a shock because I've never been to a third world country. So I found myself in Banda Aceh, which is a third world country, and then on top of that, the tsunami had devastated. Over 150,000 people were killed in Banda Aceh alone. And that's the city that we had spent our efforts on, Banda Aceh and Sigli, right on the northwestern part of Sumatra, which is only 80 miles from the epicenter, from where the tsunami originated from. So they took the brunt of the wave that came in. Very first morning that we arrived there in Banda Aceh, the people that were in charge there took us on a tour, quote unquote, of the downtown area by the ocean in Banda Aceh, so that we could see firsthand what we had been seeing on TV for 6 months, because this was 6 months later. And so all of us were taken out in a little van, miniature van. All 9 of us were in this little itty-bitty van. And the terrain was very rough, and a lot of the roads had been washed out and bridges were gone. And so I think for all of us, it was a real shock to drive down there, again, to see these buildings gone and to see ships, you know, a mile or 2 miles inland that were just laying on their sides. Huge, huge ships. And trying to picture what it would have been like to be there. The only way I can describe the devastation is when I got back to the States and I started editing, I caught a picture in the newspaper about Hiroshima. There was a picture of Hiroshima after it was bombed. And I remember taking that picture and I put it next to my monitor of Banda Aceh, the same pictures that I had videotaped, and they looked identical. They looked totally identical, because the force of the tsunami was equal to 4 atomic bombs. It came in at Banda Aceh at, I believe it was 500 miles an hour, 80-foot high waves at 500 miles an hour. The pictures I have of cars, the automobiles, look like aluminum cans after you crunch them with your hands. That's what the cars look like, because they had just been pushed in and pushed back and rolled, and the water, the violence of the water, I've never seen anything like it in my life. So I remember standing on the shores of Banda Aceh with the Indian Ocean behind me, and I turned around and I looked at the city, and I saw what looks indistinguishable. Even when I show photographs, it just looks like a dump or something. It looks like a field of debris, until I point out that there are like cement foundations. If you look closely, you'll see squares throughout the whole landscape. And these were brick homes, so all the brick was gone, everything was gone.
Our local hosts, if you will, took us to a zone at the water's edge that was just rubble for as far as the eye could see, and then it gave way to such a beautiful seascape. But then the host very gently said, well, you need to understand that the seascape is about 1/4 of a mile closer than it used to be, and what is no longer there is not even rubble, it's just gone. It's just gone.
Memang itu nggak ingat apa-apa lagi. Anak istri pun nggak ingat lagi, ya. Karena entah bagaimana pikiran kita sudah terbungkus gitulah. Kita pernah lihat anak di depan mata, tapi enggak kita ajak lari mereka tuh.
When the tsunami came, he was here. After the earthquake, he saw that the sea become dry, and tsunami came so fast. He cannot do anything. He was shocked. He said it's like he didn't remember. He couldn't think at the time. because tsunami was so tremendous, and he lost his wife and 5 children. Now he has the oldest and the number 3 child. Yeah.
Would you ask him if it's still painful?
Kalau apa Bapak masih merasa apa?
Trauma.
Sakit apa?
Sakit memang nggak terasa. Cuma kalau orang rumah, istri saya masih bisa trauma dia.
Trauma.
Ya. Bahkan kalau dia sering-sering datang dia pulang kemari kan, kadang belum tiba-tiba shock.
Oh.
Sampai sekarang. Bunyi pun sing jatuh dia kadang-kadang rebah langsung.
He not with him, but with the people at home. People at home when they hear the loud noise from the tin falling, they will be very shocked.
I knew that my purpose was to shoot film and then to help the medical team as well set up the clinics each day. And then the rest of the day I was free to roam around with the translator and shoot film and interview people that had survived the tsunami. So my mind was pretty well focused on that, which kind of kept me safe emotionally for the first 2 days. I found myself hiding behind my camera. And I had remember at one point I was in a house with a family. When the tsunami came in, that was 2.5 miles inland, and so the water had risen to the top of the house. So the entire family climbed up on top of the house to save themselves. While they were up there, they had a little girl who was probably about 1.5 years old, and she fell into the water. And the teenage boy had, without any thought of his own life, jumped in to rescue her. And keep in mind, the tsunami's basically going inland, and for 8 hours it went back and forth. It just flushed back and forth and back and forth. And so he risked his life and jumped in and saved his little sister and was able to pull her back on the roof. And so that whole family that I interviewed actually survived. Some of the neighbors were killed. Some of the entire families were killed. And just 50 feet in front of us was a barge that had come in 2.5 miles inland from the tsunami, and it was laid down on top of this village. So this barge was just 50 feet in front of this house. And I remember filming the family that had survived, and then looking at this barge, and then my battery went dead on my camera at that particular point, so I could no longer shoot. I could no longer shoot film. And so I had to lay my camera down, and that's when the realization of where I was, that's when the emotions began to rise up inside me.
Saya lari, ada 5 menit, orang bilang air.
The earthquake was so strong that my cup fell down, and then the place that I was sitting was near the stream. And when I look at the stream, I saw the water in the stream, went away very quickly, became kind of dry. So I had a feeling that something bad happened. So I ran away 5 minutes later, and people started to scream, saying, "Water, water!" And I saw the big wave coming. Did you try to warn anybody?
Saya air pertama saya lihat. Ini pertama ada 3 meter lah.
The trip did have 2 distinct parts. The first week was in Banda Aceh, and that's what took the big brunt of the tidal wave in Indonesia. Just, tens and thousands of people killed. The second part of the week, again, was about 2 hours down the coast, and while there was devastation from the tsunami, we were in clinics that were more poor rural. These families were not so acutely affected by the tsunami itself. Yes, the aftermath, some friends, some relatives, that 10 miles away had been killed, or the loss of the local governmental infrastructure. But these clinics were, I mean, this was their everyday, hand-to-mouth existence. The shortness of the trip is such that you really can't address a lot of the public health aspects. Most third world environments are going to be helped with nutrition and vaccination and basic infrastructure like plumbing and clean water. Well, a 2-week trip, we're not able to provide a whole lot of that. Vaccines were a possibility, but information I'd culled from the State Department and from the World Health Organization had indicated that the Indonesian government had done a fine job of having the population very well immunized. And in fact, they had feared that there would be massive outbreaks of very preventable diseases like tetanus and diphtheria, and that never occurred. So we decided that the best bet was to go for the diseases that could be dealt with on a short-term medication basis, acute infections. Chronic sinusitis would still fall into that. And then we felt that based on past experience, the people we would be dealing with would really want to come away with something, some kind of Western medicine or intervention, and a very safe but a very useful intervention would be multivitamins. We know that the food stocks were disrupted, and while they had access to basic calories, there was some concern that some of the micronutrients in the vitamin supply might not be good. Those were obtainable in nicely concentrated forms and chewable, so we could give them crushed to infants and chewable to children and chewed or swallowed whole for the adults. And we could, we felt, have a nutrient impact by giving them a month or two supply of vitamins to tide them over until more reliable access to a full range of dietary supplements would be available through the produce. We did have major impact on several patients. We know that just by virtue of the illness that was brought in, of the medicines we're able to offer, of the simple surgical interventions that Greg was able to make, or the diagnosis and the medicine we were able to offer. But that's a major impact for that patient. And just the very fact that we were able to tell these wonderful people that on the other side of the world, there's a whole population of people that's concerned about you. We are simply the representatives, but you need to know all the love we're bringing with us.
When the Westerners doctors come, the people, all of the villagers want to be checked by this doctor is because usually the Indonesian doctor work like the way she said, like just ask your disease and go to the pharmacy. And the most thing that they like from you actually is when you really care about them.
Where's the scabies lotion? That's really, what is that?
We don't have the orange lotion.
Oh, okay. You don't have it?
So what do you want the average person to know?
Does he smoke cigarettes? Drink a lot of beer? You have to realize that you're only of good use to the patient if you can bring your skills and a certain detachment to each case. I'm expected to deliver cognitive expertise and judgment and decision making as much driven by the need and the resources available as I am towards the oh my gosh factor. On an individual patient, you have to keep some degree of separation while you're dealing with that patient. You have the luxury later in the day during a break or at the end of a clinic stint to sit and reflect on it, and that's when you can afford to allow the emotions to really well up and to really have your own tears shed. But at the time of the actual visit, you have to apply the resources that are available in as efficient a manner as possible.
These were all clinics that were organized ahead of time, so it was really cool because we'd go there and then the village, all the villagers would come and they'd wait in line. We had an organized method to this madness because we had brought cots and we brought a pharmaceutical supply that we handed out to the patients. One of the jobs that I had was to take the people from the waiting line and take them over to the doctor and introduce them to the doctor, and each doctor had a translator. So he would do checkups and the translator would translate all this information to them.
I think the last clinic pulled off very nicely logistically. We saw some incredible people, learned some incredible stories. I think we feel comfortable about having helped. And yesterday was a day of rest, which we needed after a week of travel. And then a clinic. It was a nice shakedown cruise, I think. Last night we repacked our pharmacy supplies and some of our equipment. I think we're much more comfortable this time. The first clinic, I think we got through on nervous energy as much as anything. Today I think I sense a lot more confidence, a lot of joy, but a lot of comfort that we're going to be able to have another real good session. You also have to understand that we are absolutely helpless without the fabulous translators. They not only translate the words, but they translate the feelings and the emotions. And even just the little session I had with Indep on the first clinic, he's a close friend already. He's behind the camera acting as embarrassed as he can be.
Yeah, put it on you.
So do not minimize. In fact, I'd like you to talk to Indep. This is my good friend Indep.
Hello friends, all of you over there. Thank you very much for your encouragement.
Tell them where you're from, Indep.
I come from east of Indonesia. It's particularly from Irian Jaya. They call now it's Papua, West Papua.
The farthest away you could be and still be in Indonesia.
Yeah, we are a group from West Papua. We are 15 groups, members of the West Papua. We are here as volunteers as you do too. Thank you very much.
About 99% of the population are Muslim.